The senior diplomat who was the interlocutor for the talks with Pakistan for Iran, Mr. Karazi, has died of his wounds and his injuries. If you remember, he was targeted by Israel. They initially killed his wife by targeting an entire residential area. Mr. Karazi was seriously wounded and has now passed away. 81-year-old seasoned diplomat, former foreign minister of Iran, was targeted and killed because he was trying to negotiate a ceasefire. So Israel murdered him. This is a war crime on top of all the other war crimes that Israel has committed. Not just in Iran, not just in Lebanon, but in Gaza. We shall never forget. A British newspaper, I think it's called The National, its front page is Trump and Netanyahu's war crimes keep mounting. And the New York Times today has confirmed what we already knew. And I'm going to read some passages of what the New York Times has investigated and triangulated in several ways. And I think everybody can read the article once I'm done reading some passages. The headlines are, Iran's schools and hospitals in ruins, Times analysis shows. And they have shown us photographs of all the elementary schools, boys' schools, girls' schools, Technical University, Sharif University, Isfahan University, Gandhi Hospital, on and on, medical clinics, pharmacies. And here is what the Times is saying. The scale of devastation is likely far greater than the Times analysis. The Iranian Red Cross Society, the country's primary humanitarian relief organization, said on April 2nd that at least 763 schools and 316 healthcare facilities had been damaged or destroyed in the war. The Times confirmed damage by using high-resolution satellite imagery and by verifying footage from state media or social media sites including X, Telegram, Instagram, and Facebook. The analysis was limited to schools and healthcare facilities that were damaged on or after February 28, the first day of the war. The Times analysis shows that the damage was often caused by strikes in crowded neighborhoods, especially in Tehran, a capital of 10 million people that is densely populated as New York City. The Times was not able to verify the total number of people killed at schools and healthcare facilities. At least 1,700 civilians have been killed, 1,701 to be precise. Civilians have been killed in Iran as of Tuesday, according to the human rights activist news agency. Among them are students, teachers, and healthcare workers. In most instances examined by the Times, the intended target of a strike was not clear. In some cases, schools and healthcare facilities were damaged by nearby strikes. Others were directly hit. It was not always possible to determine whether the strikes were by the US or by Israeli military. Schools and hospitals hold some of the strongest protections of all civilian infrastructure under international humanitarian law, and intentional attacks on them could be considered war crimes. Even strikes on military targets that damage nearby schools and hospitals can violate international law, experts say, and military commanders are expected to take stringent measures to prevent and minimize such harm. By far the deadliest strike on civilians came on 28 February, the first day of the war, when the Shajra Tayyebe Elementary School was bombed in the southern Iranian town of Minab. The strike killed at least 175 people, most of them children, according to Iranian health officials. An ongoing investigation by the US military found that American forces were responsible for the bombing, according to US officials and others with knowledge of the preliminary findings. The military had used outdated information and labeled the school as a military target, the early findings said. I don't know what more to say, but everybody can go ahead and read this article, which is on the front page of the online New York Times. I wish the New York Times had done this kind of honest reporting on Gaza, where more than 20,000 children were massacred. Every school, every university, every hospital was struck, not by accident, purposefully. Don't take it from me. Take it from the Israeli military spokespersons who continue to confirm that they struck these sites and used the trope of dual use, human shields, dual use, human shields. Babies died in incubators. Children came into the hospitals virtually shredded. Doctors and nurses were targeted and killed. Humanitarian workers were slaughtered. Paramedics were blown up. Those doctors who survived were then abducted and thrown into Israeli death camps. Meanwhile, the Western media continued to lie that hospitals had Hamas in their basements, continued to use talking points and propaganda coming out of the IDF, while everybody in the world could see what was happening, because never before in history had a people live streamed their own genocide. But that is what the world was seeing. Meanwhile, the likes of Jake Tapper and Dana Bash and BBC and Sky News were literally scoffing at the death toll, at the manner of death, at what was being struck. When the first hospital was struck, Shifa Hospital, every American journalist expressed outrage and then had to apologize for reporting the truth. Had to apologize and say they were actually duped into saying what Hamas wanted them to, because the Israelis came down so hard on them. It was shocking. And after that propaganda, one after the other, hospitals were attacked. Never forget 6-year-old Hind Rajab. That child who sat amongst dead bodies of her family, bleeding, begging for help, while Israeli tanks moved on her. 600 bullets were shot into the car where this child was, ensuring that she was massacred. If the likes of the New York Times and the Washington Post and CNN and MS Now and BBC had told the truth, then maybe we wouldn't have so many children dead in Iran and so many children dead in Lebanon. That what we are reading today in the New York Times would not have happened. Yes, war crimes are mounting. And now the US military and political leaders in the US are complicit in these war crimes. And as we've said before, war crimes prosecutions have a very long memory, as Australia has just shown us. What horror did the world allow in Gaza that has led to this? There are no guardrails, there are no red lines. When you can't draw the line at genocide, there are no lines.